Hi, Shweta. I'm Dory Senatori.
Hi, Dory. Good
Hi.
morning.
Good morning. Thank you for doing this interview. Appreciate it. Um,
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the school that I teach at. I teach at the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And I'm a teacher of students with visual impairments, and I teach in the career education department. And I teach students who are 18 to 22 years old. Um, so all of those students have graduated from high school, and in the state of Texas, you can bank your diploma and you can receive special education services until you're 22 years old. And so this is perfect for me because this is what I teach, and we are, just to give you a little snapshot about our program is we're a residential school. So typically students come to us from all over the state of Texas. And while they're with us, we provide them with meaningful and hopefully purposeful career education experiences throughout the community. So over the years, we've partnered with numerous businesses where our students receive um, volunteer experiences and sometimes work experiences. So paid and sometimes not paid. So, but all of are meaningful to them because many of them have never worked before. And so that's just a little bit about me and the program that I'm teaching, just to give you an idea. And just to review, I'm kind of going off the agenda that we have for the session. And so just to, I'd like to also hear a little bit about you as well. And then after that, after our introductions, we'll just sort of kind of go into the questions there. And I have about 15 questions, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for that. The introduction is very helpful.
Thank you. And so I was reading your bio, and you're the managing engineer at the Austin Water Utility.
Yes, that's correct.
And have you also in your bio, I read that you have contributed to other schools in terms of sort of being a mentor?
Yes, that is right. I have actually mentored for close to 2.5 years now with an elementary school, the Zavala Elementary School, with a little girl in second grade to help her with her reading. I'm a mom. Apart from being a managing engineer at Austin Water, I'm a mother of two elementary kids actually who are 2 years apart. So that was just a very enjoyable experience for me.
Oh, terrific. Well, so maybe we could get right into the questions. Just could you describe what your typical workday looks like and sort of what your responsibilities are as a managing engineer?
Absolutely. So I'll start off very briefly. Shweta, been with Austin for about 6.5 years now. As a managing engineer, my typical workday really is primarily meetings and collaboration with homeowners, property owners, landowners, developers, to really better understand their development needs and put it in the context of water and wastewater. So put it in the context of their utility needs. I'll expand that a little bit. So I'll take Austin Independent School District. AISD can be a developer. I mean, a developer can be anybody, it could be an entity, it could be a single homeowner like you or me, but anybody who's wanting to expand on what they have, a home. Hey, I want to add 2 additional bathrooms and an additional living area. So all of those are developers. And when they come and meet with me and or my group, the idea is to figure out how we can serve their needs from a water and wastewater standpoint. So, and it's a very sequential process, if you will. It starts off with a very high level, big picture understanding of what the needs are. And then if there are any agreements that need to be considered, we'll kind of look at that. And then we'll really assess the system. What does the system today have? in order to serve their needs. If Austin Water's existing system can serve their development needs, that's one part of the conversation. If it cannot, then we work with the developer to see how we can enhance our system to meet their needs. And that then transforms into a set of construction drawings that basically shows exactly what this is going to look like. And finally, it gets built. So walking this project from the start to the end is sort of where my job primarily lies. So oftentimes in that process, I have to collaborate with other city departments. There are other city departments that could be a developer. We can have Austin Transportation Department that says, hey, we want to build something and we need water for this. Like I said, Austin School District can be say, hey, we want to redo a certain elementary school, a certain high school, and we need to now look at what we can do. We need to expand the footprint, and therefore we need additional water, additional wastewater. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, with what I do. Oftentimes, a lot of the folks that I have to bring to the table report to me, but other times it's people from other entities, other organizations. So being able to negotiate an outcome that produces, a positive outcome for both the city and the developer, that's the way I would describe my job.
I see. So essentially, they have to come to you for a permit, for lack of a better word, for them to be able to build and add on that additional facility, bathroom, or what have you?
Absolutely, Dory. Yes, you totally hit the nail on the head. Yes, in order to get a permit, in order to develop something, they'll need to work with us. Now, there are other people that they're going to need to work with as well. But from a water wastewater standpoint, it would primarily start with me and or my group.
I see. Would that be the same if somebody wanted to build a house and have their whole house like reverse osmosis? Would they need to go to the Austin Water Utility and say, I want to do a reverse osmosis throughout my whole house? Or, do they have to get that okayed by you, permitted?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a group that so with reverse osmosis, there's more technical nuance to it to make sure that we don't have any backflow, cross contamination. But yes, that development application would start with us, and we would connect you with other groups within Austin Water to make sure that all of the risks of this development are vetted, and then a permit is issued.
I see. Is that the facility that's located right there at 620 and what is it? Anderson, no, 2222? That big water
treatment plant? Yes, that is, it belongs to Austin Water, yes. So it's a water treatment plant. What that does is it takes water from the lake and it treats it, and that's how we're able to provide it to homeowners, developers, and things of that sort. Yes, it is a treatment plant.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know if that was part, I guess it's part of Austin Water then. Because I drive past that every day. So how long, I read, so you said you were at Austin Water Utility for 6.5 years? And so you've been with that company for 6.5 years, but you've been doing this longer than that, obviously.
Yes, for about 20 years now. It's over 2 decades that I've done this. Started off in a consulting firm in Dallas for close to 8 years, where I did very hardcore design, design and construction management. And then I worked as a city engineer for the city of Lancaster. It's 10 minutes away from Dallas downtown. And my family got me here.
Yeah. Oh, so then you started working when you came to Austin at the water utility?
Correct. Yes, I started working for Austin Water when I moved here 6.5 years back.
And so in your education, where did you start? Like this, as a managing engineer, what sort of level of education do you need for this position, or where did you start out?
Absolutely. From an academic standpoint, I would say I've had a very conventional path. I hear a lot of stories about very exciting journeys. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of an exciting journey. I've had a bachelor's in civil engineering and now a master's in civil engineering. For my position, really a bachelor's or up, anything higher than a bachelor's is what is required. Primarily, it's science or engineering, even a legal degree at some level, because there's some level of contract and agreement, memorandum of understanding, those kinds of pieces involved. But the work itself is based off of science and engineering principles. So I would say that primarily the work focuses on a science degree, if you will.
So you work in conjunction with a legal department, probably.
Very closely. Oftentimes, yes. I can explain that a little bit. So Austin Water has its service area where we provide service to our residents. But somewhat like Lakeway, we have an independent agreement with Lakeway. They have their own little service area that they say, hey, we're going to service our customers. But they are not as big as Austin to have its own, treatment plant, wastewater, collection treatment plant, and things of that sort. So from that standpoint, we are able to negotiate an agreement and say, hey, we'll sell you the water at XYZ dollars for these many gallons. We're able to execute that. So those are the pieces where extensively it involves interaction with the legal department.
Oh, I see. I live in Lakeway, so it's interesting that you said Lakeway. So now I know. Now I know. So as far as like you talked about a little bit about your education, now with the education as a civil engineer, would you say that as you were going through your program to become a civil engineer, did you have training sort of that coincided with your program? Or was it like I did my program and now I do my internship?
Yes, it was a combination of both, I'm going to say. So while I was doing my bachelor's in civil engineering, I was able to work at a treatment plant. So I was able to really do some testing and kind of understand the chemistry, the biology that goes into treating water, the chemical composition, how do we want our water to look. So I was actually fortunate to get that. That was just a 6-month stint, but that really exposed me to the world of water treatment, if you will. So from then on, I've actually worked, and a lot of the exposure I've gotten to the professional world is through my working, which has been, designing plans and, just coming up with construction drawings, understanding federal and local government codes, just even municipal codes. Just having a good sense of understanding has helped kind of be in to get a good grasp of what I'm doing.
Yeah, that sort of led me to my next question as far as the technical skills. You sort of spoke about what academic skill you need, bachelor's degree or higher. And then the technical skills, it sounds like, are a lot of you sort of that knowledge of the design aspect.
Absolutely. So you absolutely hit the nail on the head. I mean, so from a very academic standpoint, a bachelor's degree, science, engineering, related fields is helpful. But from a more technical standpoint, I would say having a good understanding of water and wastewater operations, having a good understanding of federal, state, and city regulations, Texas local government code, having a good sense of what are these things, Clean Water Act, just different things of that sort that have happened in the course of water treatment in the United States. And also another key component is having a good sense of budget planning and financial negotiations. Like I said, oftentimes there's a lot of people at the table trying to negotiate a deal with, hey, are you going to sell us water? And if you are, how much can we pay you for it? So having a good sense of financial stewardship helps. So those are where I would broadly call the technical skills. Of course, the more basic ones, Excel, computer skills, PowerPoint, typing, Word, things of that sort are helpful too. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the soft skills, which I think is very helpful for anybody. I think the soft skill piece is there's a huge communication piece involved in this position. And again, being able to negotiate an outcome. Developers want to do the least and get away, and the city wants the most from the developer. So how do you meet in the middle ground and make this positive? So having that knack to bring that deal home is one part of it. Being able to have just good leadership skills and just vision planning, being able to look ahead and say, okay, instead of just being very reactive, being able to forecast and say, I think this is going to blow, let me plan accordingly, just having that sense are some of the more soft skill that I would say that this position or anybody aspiring to be in this position would need.
I love that you said soft skills because we're always I'm trying to teach that, and it's very challenging to teach it virtually. It's challenging to teach it in person, but it's really, it's one of those things that I feel like can almost only be taught in the moment, the hands-on moment, work training, and it's really hard just to sit there in a class and talk about it. So, but yeah, soft skills are so important.
Thank you.
So as far as this sort of leads, I didn't mean it to, but it does lead into this next question as far as like when I think about like teaching, you know, preparing my students who are, like I said, 18, usually they're anywhere from 18 to 20 when I have them. And, you know, when I think about what I should be teaching, how can I prepare them to be well-rounded, you know, in a company like this? You know, some of the things we do teach are self-determination and the soft skills. And like you said, the communication skills are so important. But I'm just thinking, what would you suggest, other things that you would suggest that I should be, how I could prepare them?
Absolutely. I think this is a great question, and you're right. It kind of ties back into the previous comment I made about the technical and the soft skills. You're absolutely right when you say teaching soft skills is such a hard thing. And when I can say I've sat on numerous hiring panels when we're trying to hire people for different positions within the organization, and I would say that that's probably the soft skill area is probably the weakest where we've seen people come in. I mean, we see very bright students right off of college come in, very promising, looks great from an academic and a paper standpoint. But when it comes to the hands-on piece of it, or even just being able to, you know, the soft skill pieces is where it falls short. I mean, there's a couple of things I think, really, I think having students being involved in like actual community impact projects is probably one way. I mean, I can think of something like, you know, having students really think like, I mean, Mopac Expressway, right? I mean, someone who's really interested in a transportation sort of a field, you could encourage them and say, hey, what are some ways that you think we can actually reduce the traffic congestion on Mopac in the morning and in the evening hours? So that really presents a real life situation. So it's not something made up purely to satisfy like an academic goal, you know, milestone or something of that sort, but gets students to think of that, gets students to go out and really look at what's going on in the mornings and in the evenings and be like, oh, what can we do? You know, things of that sort. So I think it builds on their innovative thinking. It builds on their leadership abilities because they take that responsibility. So ownership, leadership, and then also helps them manage priorities at some level. So I would say that having them take on some rural community impact projects would be a good way to get them started in this. And certainly, I'm sure there are professional grooming opportunities that I don't know how that works, but maybe YouTube videos and stuff like that, where, you know, just having them prepare and come. I've always learned, had someone in my life, a good mentor told me once that every job that you apply for, you have to treat it as a very unique job. Oftentimes we see people use the same resume for 7 different jobs that they're applying. So, I mean, so, you know, having a very tailored approach to some of these things will help greatly for someone who, you know, someone who can learn something like this in the classroom. So hands-on, kind of like you were mentioning, would be a good way to start.
Okay. Yeah, I like your idea that the real world, a solution to something in the, you know, many of my students can't drive, and so they don't really understand what that would look like. However, they have to take public transportation, you know, or they have to wait, or the Metro Access doesn't come because it's overwhelmed by too many people, you know, and so that is a really good idea. I love that idea. I'm going to use that one for for sure.
Thank you. And definitely, I mean, like even just from a water wastewater standpoint, I think we can say something like, hey, turn on how does the water in your faucet really come, or what happens after that first flush? I mean, we don't need students to be driving or, things of that sort. I mean, we could just look at different problems, say, hey, do you know what happens after the very first flush? Do you know where it goes? How does it get cleaned? So getting them involved in something like that where they're thinking through the process, or even giving them a potential area and saying, hey, now imagine if you owned 40 acres of this land and you can build anything you want to. What would you like to build on it? And how are you going to make sure that you bring all the needed amenities like water, wastewater, roads, bus, whatever, transportation, things of that sort. So just have anything like that would, I think, help them to step out of the more conventional learning pattern and start being innovative.
Yes, because we don't teach the TEKS curriculum because they've already fulfilled all of their TEKS requirements. So we're just teaching all of those sort of life skill classes, if you will. And so I like that idea a lot. I think I'm going to start a class that is just what you just described. I know that you mentioned that you were mentoring some younger students for reading, but are there any ideas or any materials that you would have that, a teacher like myself could use in the classroom? I mean, the idea that we just spoke of, I will definitely use. But any other ideas that you would have that I could, I don't know as far as materials what that would look like, but
Sure, absolutely. I can go back and look at that. I know in the past we've put a lot of PowerPoint presentations for different occasions like this to help, people understand what the job takes and what happens. So I can certainly look to see if there's something I can share. Definitely, like you guys are doing, I think you guys are doing a great job. Guest speakers who can come in and talk about what they do in real life so students can see, oh, is this something that interests me? No, maybe not. This is not what I like. Just having them being exposed to that, I think would definitely be something I would say hands-on. And I have within my division, I have a couple of folks who actually ride around. I mean, they have a field job that requires them to be out and about through the day. So that's another opportunity. I'll have to work with our HR to figure out what are the logistics. But if at all at some point past COVID-19, if there's an opportunity to have students who are really interested follow these people to see how the actual field work happens, that's another opportunity that I'm open to considering as well.
Oh, that was one of my questions. Well, two, would you be willing to speak to my class, which is kind of what we were talking about, just doing it virtually, well, maybe virtually, hopefully in person at some point, but if it is maybe virtually, or like the other people that you mentioned, but also talking about you sort of mentioned like shadowing, seeing where these people go, they have to ride around and in the community to sort of job shadow.
Absolutely. I'm a huge believer of that. I think that helps people, students, especially as they're, young, still trying to determine what their career needs to be or how they need to take their career path. I think that would be a great blessing. Would be happy to do that myself. And I have several groups. So depending on the interest of a student, I could get them connected with these individual folks who can really take them to see, depending on their interest.
That would be fabulous, especially my students who need to sort of be in the situation to fully understand it. Mm-hmm. Last year I had one student who was blind, but all my other students were low vision, and I had all of them, working in the community, and that was really effective because it was the only way, really the hands-on way for them to really understand, about a job, just any job actually, but just what it takes to have a job and what, different skills you need to be able, like being on time and, all of those things. So now that, we're sort of in a different time right now, but technology, it's how has that affected everything that you're doing Do you have to do everything virtually now? Um,
Yes, I think that's a very timely apt question. Yes, technology has played a huge part. I mean, even before the current COVID-19 situation, I feel like technology has been very key for and even my work groups that I look at has played a huge factor. I mean, some of the more basic things, like I shared with you, Excel, Word, PowerPoint presentation, those are all things that happen on a day-to-day basis. Even just being able to write something instead of the more conventional handwritten notes. Now we use Word or Excel, to do things. But a little bit more involved software. I talk about ArcGIS, I talk about AutoCAD, I talk about Bluebeam. A lot of this goes into designing the plans and looking at them, reviewing the plans that we get from different engineers to be able to say, hey, does this comply with the city rules? Does this comply with state rules? So having all of those tools has made work really more streamlined, more efficient, very productive for both parties. I would say, I mean, even just a simple example, and this is a 35-year timeline, so I'm not even going to a 100 or a 200-year kind of timeline, just in 35 years, in the same work group, one of my work groups, when engineers used to come and bring plans that needed to be reviewed, they would bring it in and our intake staff would handwrite it. We had a nice log book where they would write the date and the time that these plans were received. Eventually that got replaced with Excel, but sure, Excel only allows one person to make any changes at one point. So that then got replaced with Access Database, where they had multiple users who had the ability to enter data. And now we're looking at ArcGIS based online portals where you actually can even see the location of this area that's come in for review. So someone who's looking at it graphically, it's interactive. So they look at it and say, oh, this is where my area is. Let me pick this project. So just in 35 years, I feel technology, even just on a very simple task of plan intake, technology has made such a strong, has played such a strong role, I would say. So absolutely, technology is key. And that's another place where I feel there's an opportunity to build our students, to give them some more hands-on work with technology, have them, be more engaged with some of the newer softwares that come out. I understand some of them are very expensive, but potentially having like one license and having different students try it out is a good way to expose them to how these things work.
That's a really good idea because, and I might propose that to my school, because our students a lot of them use screen readers. One is called NVDA. That one's actually free, but JAWS is another one, and it's quite expensive. And it would be very interesting to see if, any of these are accessible, because a lot of them, a lot of things just in general aren't. And there's been this whole sort of, I guess there's companies now out there that are where they are helping other companies be accessible. It's sort of like you don't know what you don't know. Most companies don't know that they're not accessible. Why would they even think of that? But so they're finding that, they're working on that. So that's a very good idea. I wonder if we can do that, get a license and just try to see a license or two on different. I might reach out to you and see about different software as far as what we would need,
I'd be happy to help. And I think most of them even offer like a student version or something like that that's probably more subsidized. So that's another idea to look at to see if that helps. But absolutely happy to help.
Okay. So when you think about your work hours, is it a bit, it doesn't sound like it's a 9-to-5 job.
It's not. I end up usually doing about 10 to 11 hours a day, about 5 days a week. But part of what I do, I mean, it sounds like a lot. It definitely is. But I've come to realize that as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't seem like a burden. It doesn't seem like, oh, I need to do this again kind of a feeling. So that would really be something that I would tell the students is, and I've been through their journey in so many ways. So I will, not in every way, obviously, but in some ways. But I would say that enjoying what they're trying to do is key to being happy. So, and then you don't really feel the stresses with work. You don't feel a lot of other things that come with work, which is more conventional to, oh, I have to go to work. Oh, it's so stressful. Those things don't happen. So, yes.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I feel. As you don't really feel like you're working because you love what you're doing, you know. Is so it sounds like you have a lot. There's a lot of positive things that you love about your job. Can you name just a couple of, what made you want to do this? What is, it sounds like you were sort of drawn to this for a while. But what do you love about your job?
Sure. I think I'm going to say, and this is going to sound very cliched, so I apologize if it's going to sound cliched, but I'm trying to be very sincere. I enjoy the community service part of it. I worked as a consultant, in the sense of being not in an offensive way, very ruthless, very profit-minded, things of that sort. And then I worked in the municipality world. And the community service part is actually very exciting. You get to see the projects that you build, and you get to actually see the impact that you're making on a lot of these things. Sometimes with the developers, the development that we get are smart housing, affordable housing. It's schools, like what you're talking about. So it just is very satisfying to see that, hey, I was, a 1,000th part of this project in some level. So that the community service part and the customer service part, again, I'm an extroverted person. I enjoy talking to people. So part of that is easier when you have people, that you get to talk to every day, virtually, in person. Some of the other parts are like the problem solving. Being a very cliched engineer, I enjoy problem solving, breaking it into groups to find an answer. So that makes me feel very good at the end of the day. So when people come with their problems, developers come with their problems, engineers come with their problems, being able to identify a solution. And the beauty is none of these solutions have a cookie cutter answer. They're all unique depending on different situations, depending on the code and the rule application. So things are very discretionary. So that makes it exciting too, because you're not saying, oh, this is exactly like what we did 2 weeks back. It's very seldom do I get to say that, or any of the work groups that that I deal with get to say that. So that's exciting. And the last part is, I'll definitely say, as a mom with a young family, definitely the work-life balance. I mean, I know 10 hours, 11 hours sound like a lot. I also have the flexibility to be able to go do some things with the kids, just do things. So having that flexibility has been very helpful to enjoy this job.
Oh, that's good. It seems like more companies are trying to do that now, and just more professions in general, to be there for your family. So if you were to give advice to one of my students who's interested in having a job like yours, what would you tell them?
I would say that, aside of the technical skills and, the more academic ones, I would really say having good leadership, having good communicative skills, being able to negotiate an outcome. Those are all things that I would really encourage them to look into is, hey, I mean, do you enjoy these things? If you enjoy these things, this job is for you. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all of those little pieces that sort of, it's interesting because, I mean, not just my students, I think most students in general, have a hard time understanding, well, oh, I want to be an engineer. Like, they don't understand all of the other things and the other pieces that go into it. But like you said, soft skills and all the other like little technical skills that you need, sort of a culmination of everything. And so as far as what would you recommend that how I could, because I'm trying to strengthen our career education program, and I'm always looking for ways to always sort of tie it into a work situation. I want it to be meaningful, purposeful, relevant to the student who has already gone all through high school, and now they're sitting in a classroom. And to me, I just want to move them away from that and sort of do that life skill training, but tying it to the workplace. Is there anything you could recommend for me? Just, I know we touched on a lot of different things, and I don't mean to be redundant, but if there's anything else that you could think of as far as to really make it, you know, a rich sort of experience for them, make it relevant.
Absolutely. No, I think like we talked about, I think the hands-on experience helps them, you know, community projects, like having them be aware of situations, you know, from a community standpoint, and even globally to an extent in some situations, just having them be aware of things of that sort. Definitely, I would say that incorporating somewhat of a mandatory workplace experience, you know, I don't know how the graduation process would work, but something like, hey, you've got to have 6 months or 9 months of a workplace experience prior to being able to graduate from this program, or, you know, having some check like that would really be rewarding for them. And it would also kind of expose them to the real world challenges. And like you say, you know, being on time, how do you dress up at when you come to a professional place? I mean, those are like minor things that I feel oftentimes we have the city of Austin has a high school internship program, and we have high school kids who come and try to help us during summer. And I see a lot of young girls actually ask that question of some other women leaders, including myself in the organization, saying, oh, I didn't know I should dress like this. Oh, I thought a spaghetti top is okay. I mean, you know, just having these minor little opportunities for them to expose and say, oh, this is how I need to come in. So having that helps. So almost like a mandatory work experience, sort of a curriculum. Part of being the curriculum, I guess, would be some ways that I could see some benefit for students here.
Yeah, we've tried to do that over the years, and we've tried to tie it into Dress for Success. And, you know, we've taken them to, many of them have never had to go get a haircut on their own. You know, a parent would go and tell the stylist how to do it for the, you know, the student. So we try to expose them to, you need, you know, you have to comb your hair, or you, like you said, you can't wear a spaghetti top and cut off shorts to your first day at work, you know, and because it's like they sort of don't know what they don't know. But yeah, I've tried to, and I'm just going to keep, you know, keep doing that and having that experience. But I feel like making it a little bit more explicit might be in order, you know.
Absolutely. Dory, I had one more thing for you.
Oh,
sorry, Dory. I had one more thing as we were talking. It just came to my, you know, I thought of even just interviewing skills. Like, I mean, there could just be a whole session on interviewing itself. I know even Austin Water HR does that for our own employees who have, because Austin Water has a lot of internal opportunities for promotion and growth and things of that sort. So, I mean, I'll give you a very good example. We have people who come in with, you know, basic interview questions that test soft skills, right? Like, tell us a time when you had to, when you missed a deadline, and tell us how you cope with it, right? I mean, so that's really testing, okay, how can you, that's testing your leadership. How can you handle when you miss something, you know, talks about ownership and things of that sort. And we have a lot of people come in and say, I've never missed a deadline. I don't miss a deadline. And we all know that, you know, we all know that that's, I mean, we all miss a deadline in some form or fashion, but how did you recover from that situation is probably what the panel would be looking for. And that's just one example. But, you know, we have lots of such examples where it's those finer skills that are missing. So almost like an interview 101 or something like that for these students would also just be a help. Just something that came up. So you can take it or leave it.
No, I love that. I've tried to, you know, after you're the teacher for X amount of months, they kind of stop listening to you. So I had tried to do that with, set up interviews with people that they didn't know, and I'd send people questions and things like that, and then come back and we would discuss it. But that is a really good, that's tough, because what I always say is, like, the interview process, you know, you're always working on it. You know, I mean, you feel like you get better as you go, but really there's always room for improvement, you know. So, but yeah, I love that. Interview 101, that will be definite. I try to refine every year, but I love hearing from, a professional telling me what more to work on and what y'all are looking for. So I'm going to keep at that, keep making that better. Well, those are all the questions that I have. I know I've taken up almost an hour of your time. I really appreciate meeting you today and talking with you.
Thank you, Dory. You guys, I think seems like from everything I've heard, you guys are doing a great job. So I think that's fantastic. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for inviting me today. Definitely, I got to learn a lot from listening to some of the ideas that you shared. So thank you for having me over.
Likewise, I learned a lot from you as well, and thank you for being so open to, sort of helping students. That's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you.